Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. The first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. I must ask that we remove the minutes of the March 15th meeting because we'll need to vote on that separately since I was not at the meeting and cannot vote on it. So shall we begin with the consent agenda items of the Friends and the Library Foundation minutes? Do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
Motion to accept those minutes.
And a second? Okay, that was Carol Herman. And now we will vote to accept those and we will do a voice vote. Carol, do you?
Yes.
Sandy, do you approve accepting the minutes of the Friends and the Library Foundation?
I have a question. Let me see. On the foundation minutes.
Well, then we need to pull them off for discussion.
Let me see if I can, let me see if I thought I made a note, but maybe I did not.
Kim, did you make the motion, that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a question about the grants. I guess we have to discuss those separately. Is that what you're saying?
If you want to discuss something within the minutes, then then you should make a motion to remove them from the consent agenda. Any discussion of an item on the consent agenda necessitates removing it because the consent agenda means we're just approving them all and not talking about them.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I would like to talk. I have a question about it. That's why I'd like to talk about it. So I'd have to make a motion to remove that from the consent agenda.
Yes.
I'd like to move to remove the line 4 regarding the grants on the Library Foundation report.
So your motion is to remove the Library Foundation meeting minutes from our consent agenda so that we can discuss.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just referencing one section. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I moved to remove the Library Foundation minutes from the consent agenda. Sorry.
All right, I'll second that.
I'm a little unfamiliar with the process. You have to excuse me.
Okay, so now we need to vote individually to approve removing them.
That's how it works. You
Okay.
remove it. Yeah.
Carol, do you support this motion?
Yes.
Sandy, do you support this motion?
Yes.
Kim, do you support this motion?
Yes.
Chris, do you support this motion?
I do. Yes.
And I, Kathy Clarendon, also support this motion, so we will discuss it now. Sandy, go ahead.
Well, I have a question on the grants. Section 4. I mean, I know someone from the foundation is supposed to speak tonight, but are these grants approved, or or is the foundation going to be applying for those? That was a bit confusing.
I can speak to that. So the foundation has a grants director, and that is Eileen Browning. So she keeps on top of when due dates are coming up. So the items that are listed on the minutes are due dates of upcoming grants, and oftentimes we need to apply through the foundation, much like with the Rhode Island community grant. That is the one that is listed that I had you all convene to vote on back in March. And so they are not all, we do not have applications pending for all of them. And the John Clark grant was not one that I decided to go with. And the others listed there are further out. So we're still thinking about those.
Well, when I read it, I was a little confused because it said, because of the delay in receiving grant money, discussion ensued whether the foundation can front money. It kind of gave me the impression that there were approved grants. That's why I was a little confused. That's why I questioned it.
Yes, that's a great question. So one of the, I believe it was related to the Rhode Island community grant. So oftentimes we'll get notification that we've been awarded a grant, but there will be a few weeks until we actually receive the check. So sometimes what will happen is the foundation, I don't know if this has actually ever been done when I've been here, but the foundation could front the cost for, X, Y, and Z until the check comes in for those items so that we
Okay.
could get a ball rolling prior to that. And
That was-
I don't think Stu is on this call tonight. I will certainly ask him to be on the May regular trustees meeting and give like a foundation 101.
That's why I questioned it. That was my only reason for, because that line kind of gave me the impression that there were grants approved and we were just waiting for them to be received.
Just the Rhode Island Community Grant.
Sorry. Okay, I'm
All
all
right,
set.
is there a motion to accept the Library Foundation minutes?
So moved.
I second.
All right, roll call vote. Carol Herman,
Yes.
Sandy Mantell,
Yes,
Kim Sutherland,
Yes,
Chris Ryan,
Yes,
Kathy Clarendon, yes. All right, so we will also need to separately approve the Tiverton Libraries minutes. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
I will
I'll second.
second. And Carol Herman,
Yes.
are we done with that? We don't need to do a roll call vote, or we do?
I thought because we're remote or on Zoom, we actually have to call out.
Okay,
That
Carol
was the discussion that they had when we had the
that's
attorney
what I,
give us a schooling, if you will.
yeah. Carol Herman, do you accept?
Yes.
Sandy Mantell, do you accept?
I do.
Kim Sutherland, do you accept?
yes,
Chris Ryan, do you accept?
yes.
Kathy Clarendon, I accept.
And I'll
Now,
make
the
a
minutes
motion-
of,
I will
the
make
minute-
a motion to approve the minutes of our March 15th meeting.
Carol Herman, do you accept? Oh, we need a second, I'm
I
sorry.
will second.
Carol, do you accept?
Yes.
Sandy Mantell,
Yes,
Kim Sutherland,
Yes,
Chris Ryan?
Yes, but I had a question. Is that the March 15th one? That,
Yes.
Yes.
okay, so there's nobody's questioning.
Catherine, how do I
must
get rid of my
abstain.
hologram?
Wait a minute.
I cannot vote since I was not there, so I must abstain, but the motion still passes.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the treasurer's report.
And Sandy, if you want to get rid of your hologram there,
Yeah.
you're going to click on the three dots in your video square.
Yeah,
And you should be able to change your background or choose your virtual background or choose video filter. One of those two options.
that's not an available option.
Yeah, I think you have to, if your screen looks like mine, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a video icon
Yeah,
and there's an arrow next to that.
yes,
Click on that arrow. You can choose your virtual background. And you can turn off your virtual background.
got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry for the confusion. That hologram was driving me crazy.
Treasurer's report. All righty. I will go ahead with that. So March reconciliations are, that was part of your meeting packet. So as far as income and expense reports go, I feel like building maintenance has finally leveled off. It just seems like the winter for us was a really sort of uphill battle with taking care of toilets and all those fun things. So we are in a good spot there. For the rest of fiscal year 21, I'm really hoping that expenditures will pretty much just be what's in our service contracts and also small repairs and improvements. As I wrote this last week, I realized two of our AC units were not on, and they are pretty much circulating all the time, just some level of air, which is good. It moves air through the building. So we did just have to call GM and have them out and restart 2 of the rooftop units. So I don't anticipate that's going to be a large expense. It was due to some sort of power outage or power surge that didn't impact everything in the building. So rest assured, it's something sort of out of the ordinary there and not a prolonged issue. And also, I cannot go on the roof and turn those back on. So that is not in my job description. But okay, so we did have a regular Encore sprinkler inspection in March, and that went well. They also performed, I had Encore perform the domestic backflow inspection that is now required by North Tiverton Fire Water District. This was just sort of an out of the blue inspection that we are now required to have because we don't have that already scheduled. This was a totally new inspection. So that was completed. I think the additional cost for that is around $100. And so that is on an annual basis going forward. The legal bill came in from the executive session meeting, and so that also hit in March. And then other expenses that you see on those reconciliations are payroll, benefits, materials purchasing, all pretty typical of what a month looks like here at the library. I will talk with the board treasurer over the next couple of weeks, about end of the year forecasting, and if I do need any sort of line item transfers beyond what we're discussing tonight with building maintenance, I will bring those to you in May, and we'll come up with a plan for how the end of the year will look. Any questions about the income and expenditures or the town side of things? Okay, Bank Newport. So program expenses are included in the March Bank Newport reconciliation. I did decide to continue our second Zoom subscription. Zoom kind of has us in a tough spot because they only allow us to have one meeting going on at the same time. I think this is also something that the town is grappling with as well, that, you know, they have a lot more meetings than we have. We have these meetings and then also library programs going on at the same time. So for the foreseeable future, I think we'll need 2 Zoom accounts. It is sort of a hassle to plan programs on other nights than Monday nights. And those seem to work really well for our patrons. And I think having programs on Monday nights is going well so far. So we're just going to keep 2 Zoom accounts. It's only $15 per month. So a worthwhile expense when it means that we can have meetings like this and also have library programs at the same time. Let's see. We did have, if you notice, a $10 charge in our Bank Newport summary. There was a membership friends check that was written to Tiverton Public Library. So we cashed it into our Bank Newport account, and then we paid the friends that money so that the individual who wrote that check did not have to write a second one. And then I know there were some questions about book donations at the last meeting. So I did make sure that the $500 book donation pass-through was noted with the backup journal entry. And that's the extra sheet that you all had. And that is about it for Bank Newport. Any questions?
All right, let's move on to the Budget Committee report.
Okay, fiscal year 22 update. So on Saturday, April 10th, the town council voted to keep the library's capital funding of $15,000 in their budget, which is very, very good for us. There are already things that I have a list for as far as capital goes that we could use those funds on, and those funds would also be able to be rolled over as far as I understand. So that would be something that would have a fantastic impact on our budget. I believe there was only one other item kept in capital, which was a fire truck. So this is a very good thing for our budget. I'm still waiting to hear about when the town council will actually vote on the library appropriation. I haven't seen that come through on a meeting agenda yet, and I do know the town council is meeting tonight at the same time just for a special budget meeting, but we were not one of the departments listed on the agenda for tonight, so I'll keep you up to date there. On the other side of things, on Thursday last week, the budget committee made a preliminary vote to level fund the library, again, with 585,002 was the amount, so $585,002. This would have a very negative impact on library services going forward if that is going to be what the fiscal year 22 appropriation would be for us. And we had only asked for $12,500 increase, and that was not accepted. So I do hope that there is still a ways to go as far as state funding for the town goes, and also casino revenue, because I'll get into things a little bit later with personnel, but we are going to have to hire a new young adult services librarian. And if they would like health insurance, that is going to be something that we did not originally anticipate for fiscal year 22. So certain things like that have come up. And what I'll do for May is I'll work with the board treasurer on a revised fiscal year 22 budget because some things have changed, like personnel, and we will have a better look at that in May. And I hope by then that there's some movement as far as state funding goes or casino revenue, and we will certainly advocate for that. I will let you know if any other meetings come up.
Okay, let's move on to the discussion of the transfer from the salaries line.
Yes, so as you know, we have had sort of a light personnel load this year just because vacancies, and I've decided not to fill them in the meantime for budgetary reasons, but also keeping our work pod here small has been very helpful in keeping everybody safe and healthy. So we do currently have funds in salaries, and I did run this by the board treasurer prior to this meeting. What I would like to do is take 9,000 from the salaries line and put it to building maintenance specifically for the new HVAC control system. This is one of those things that it could be catastrophic. If that goes, we would not have any control over our heat or air conditioning in the building. So I would like to go ahead and replace that as soon as possible. And I'm thinking that if we start now with our current vendor, GM Refrigeration, then we should have it done by the end of the fiscal year. And this is that top priority type of building maintenance need.
Any questions, comments about this?
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I did go through the analysis that Catherine and Karen put together. And initially I had some confusion, but I called Karen and asked her the question because I thought there was an extra payroll in the forecast, but I guess there was a timing difference in terms of when the payrolls are processed. After she did that, and I took a look at the forecast they put together and the forecast that Karen's been doing that I had her put together through February, they both came out almost identical in terms of the expenses. The only big difference was the 9,500 that you wanted to add to building maintenance for the HVAC control. So transferring it is perfectly reasonable.
Yes, and the final amount I think for GM is 8,995, but I put 9,000 in here just as a even number there.
That's reasonable. Only because of the salary issues where we're actually kind of lean in terms of the salaries, and you have one individual who's working part-time instead of full-time, transitioning out eventually. I'm okay with it.
Right, well, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve transferring $9,000 from the salaries account line to, where are we moving it? building
Building
maintenance, building maintenance to pay for the software update in the HVAC system.
I
I'll
second that motion.
All right.
And Carol Herman, do you approve?
Yes.
Sandy Mantell, do you approve?
Yes, I do.
Kim Sutherland?
Yes.
Chris Ryan?
Yes.
Kathy Clarendon, yes, I approve as well. Motion passes. All right, moving on to the director's report.
Okay. Thank you all for approving that transfer. And as far as monthly statistics go, I'm very happy to report that March 2021 was the first month since March 2020, which we were only open for half the month then, that we had over 3,000 folks come through our buildings. So this is a good milestone, and we are seeing our visitors come back and those door counts trending upwards. So this is a very good thing. And I do hope that this is a good sign that this summer will be maybe a little bit more normal. And most of our programs are still being held virtually, but I do believe in April, we're going to try and do some of the programs that we know there's a few folks who are going to be attending instead of a whole bunch. We're going to try and do those in person. We did get the go ahead to start doing some in-person programs as long as occupancy was okay. So that will be a great thing this month. Digital checkouts via eZone are still continuing to exceed expectations. And we actually had our 4th busiest month ever for eZone in March. I believe over the winter were the 2 of the busiest, and last year in April was another one. So I don't see eZone going away anytime soon. Not that it ever was, but it just keeps growing and growing, which is great. And our circulation of physical materials is doing pretty well. I did include some added documents to your statistics, just showing sort of, what the busiest days of the week have been, both for the last month in March, and then for all of fiscal year 21. And so we're still seeing that spike on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Those have been traditionally our busiest days. And again, I'm so happy to see Tuesdays doing well now that we've been back open for those 3 morning hours from 10 to 1 on Tuesdays. So that has been great. Thank you, voters of Tiverton, for allowing us to be open on Tuesday mornings. That has been a big hit. So I do think over the past month to 2 months, I'd actually just like to thank AARP for completing their tax aid program. They finished up last week. I did get some statistics from them, and over the course of the couple weeks that they were here, they had approximately 450 clients come through. They filed 265 federal returns and 303 state returns. Some people do 2 state returns, depending on where they live and work. So that has just been such a great program, and really made it so that folks felt comfortable coming back into the library, and they had a fantastic system. So thank you to our AARP group for doing that. And any questions about statistics?
Nope.
Okay, I can move on to COVID operations update then. So quarantine time for returned library materials has changed from 72 to 24 hours. I am thrilled. This has been just the amount of signage that we have to do, and like thinking through how many days has something been sitting. It's a lot. And I know for patrons that this has been something that isn't exactly the easiest to keep track of in their account, just because they've returned it. So typically we think, it comes off their record, but it's something that we don't usually check in for the 3 days, and then we would do later on. So it's down to 24. I'm hoping within the next month we can be down to 0 and just do on-demand check-ins as they come in. The CDC had some new guidance, and so we were able to get some information from OLIS about that, and they're supportive of the 24-hour quarantine rule. I did mention that we're starting to hold some specifically book groups in person, if those members are comfortable doing so. And I believe our book group that meets at the senior center will be meeting in person soon. Everybody has masks on, everybody is physically distanced. So as long as there's good weather, we're really hoping that some of our events can be outside. And if not, then in the community room. The Friends of the Library, actually, this is an update since I had sent you your meeting documents. They are planning a mini book sale on Saturday, May 8th, and they have a lot of materials in storage here that they were saving for a last summer's book sale that they were never able to do. So they're hoping that this book sale will really start to clear things out. It is going to be the same day as the Indy Cycle e-waste recycling event. So we are in for a very busy day on Saturday, May 8th. The book sale will run 10 to 3 and the e-waste event will run 10 to 1. I will be here that day just because we have a lot going on and may need some nice traffic direction.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, we
I
had
had actually called in last time because there was traffic on Boogamarsh that couldn't get onto Roosevelt last time. So with
yes.
now,
We had 255 cars come through in the fall. So I'm thinking with spring cleaning, and we're actually thinking of doing this event twice a year now instead of just once a year because it has been so popular, and I think that'll help a little bit with traffic. But we actually have a traffic plan that we're hoping to loop people down towards the end of Roosevelt and then line up on Roosevelt instead of being out on Boglemarsh. But to be determined, there will be staff members telling folks where to go that day. So that's going to be a very exciting day. And the Friends are not accepting large donations like they usually do. It's merely just to clear out their inventory. So that is a good sign and something that we all feel safe doing here and are able to really make sure that everybody who's coming that day will have a good time and be able to find what they're looking for and enjoy their library shopping experience. So we, right now, also under COVID operations, I'm working on a plan for outdoor patio terrace tables. In my mind, it was much easier than it is in reality. We float somewhere between like restaurant guidelines, but we're also a public space. So if you think, you can go out to a restaurant, you can be at your table, I think for an hour and a half or 90 minutes, and you can have your mask off because you're eating. But on the public space side of things, folks do need to keep their masks on because it is a public space. So I'm trying to sort of bridge these two sort of guidelines that we have for different areas. And not many libraries actually have outdoor spaces like we do that need to be regulated, I would say, because our terrace is immediately off the library. A lot of libraries have like seating areas that are just kind of out on the lawn and not something that staff need to monitor. But since we're the terrace is much closer to where everybody will be indoors. It's something that I'm working on. So forthcoming patio terrace tables will have some rules and guidelines for out there. And I think that'll be a good next step in getting our seating back here into the library.
So Catherine, are you thinking about allowing food outside on the terrace again where people could, have beverages and snacks?
Yes, I would say what would have to happen, sort of the vague guidelines I have right now are that outside the patio tables are available. Somebody does have to check in at the information desk prior to that so that we can keep track of the amount of time that they've been here. And then they would need to wear their masks out there. But if they are doing a brief meal break, like eating, drinking, that is okay to have their mask off for. I think the main thing that I'm always worried about is I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. So if somebody came into the library and didn't feel comfortable going out onto the terrace because others didn't have their masks on, that would be my main concern, is that we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable coming into the building and using our spaces. It's also sort of treacherous with, is somebody from the same household or are they not from the same household? That's another layer of complexity there. So I do have to do a bit more reading into that. So
Do you think that it might be possible to just start off with using the terrace without allowing food and drink? That way you can see how people handle that and if
Yeah.
it's applicable for the staff?
yes, I think that is probably the best step to do, is that everybody just needs to wear a mask. They can be out there for 90 minutes and that's it. So I don't want to say, I really don't like doing restrictions, but we're in a time of restrictions and I like to think that we can only go up from here. So I think it'll be a nice option for those who need to use their laptop here, who need a place to study for a little bit, don't want to sit out in their car or on the lawn. So. Okay, and let me just check my summary here to make sure I covered everything. Yep. Okay. If there's no questions about the COVID operations update, I can move on to the YA services library and hiring update.
I have a question,
Sure.
just a minor question. I know we've enhanced the internet availability in the parking lot.
Mhm.
Do you have a way of monitoring usage, how many folks log in or usage per day? Just out of curiosity.
I should check if those statistics are included in our regular in-house Wi-Fi. I don't think they were because it is a different channel than our in-building Wi-Fi.
Just out of curiosity.
I'm gonna definitely check that. Thank you.
I'm sure it's worthwhile. I was just curious if I drove by and saw a bunch of cars, are they on the internet or just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So as far as the YA services position goes, let me just pull up my other summary here. Okay, so the document that I prepared for you all is the salary line updates, and that was related to the budget transfer. So all of the details for this agenda item are in that budget transfer backup materials. So I did go through the hiring process in March and April, and there were 2 final candidates who declined the position due to low starting compensation. So I will need to work with the personnel subcommittee on wage ranges over the next few months. I do think we need to update these. We had completed them, I believe it was back in 2019 now, and I was using 2017 data at that time. So 4 years is a long time to go without having wage range updates. I finally do have the fiscal year 20. So this is 2020 information from the state. So I'll have a more accurate and updated wage range for positions. What I will do is once I talk with the personnel subcommittee and have everything ready to go, we'll be able to repost the position in July and August for a September start date. So the reason that I did this is because it will take some time for me to go over wage ranges and make sure that what I am presenting to the personnel subcommittee is both in line with what our similar libraries are doing as far as their librarian wage ranges go, but also what is fiscally responsible for where we are here in Tiverton. With that said, that's going to take some time, and our summer reading and learning program is right around the corner. So the issue was then that we may potentially not have a teen summer reading or learning program if our current young adult services librarian were to leave at this time. And even if I reposted right away, had more interviews, had more candidates come through, that person would most likely not be able to be in the position until the end of May, beginning of June. And as you know, that's right at the beginning of our summer start time. So I asked the Young Adult Services librarian if she would stay on through the summer in a part-time capacity at 19 hours per week. And she was agreeable to that, for which I am grateful. So we will have a teen summer reading program. In the meantime, what will happen is, because we do not have a full-time person in that position, I will essentially be the other half of that position. It is not something that I will need to plan programs for, or that I will need to be in the teen library for. It is more that if somebody has a question about a young adult resource and the young adult librarian is not here, it's almost to say, you know, we have somebody here who can also answer those questions. We also have a reference librarian. We have a fantastic head of children's services. So all of those needs that come up sort of immediately like that in answering questions for our young adults here will be met. It is just that the formality of the state requiring us to have a full-time person, that will come towards September. And I did reach out to OLIS about this, and that is acceptable with them. So it's a little bit more of a long drawn out process than I was hoping for. And I am hoping that once we get through the summer and put the post out again, then we'll be in a great spot and have somebody fabulous in that position.
I have a
Chris.
question. Do you know how far off we were in offering the amount? Did they give you an idea, or?
So they did not. So right now, I'm only able to offer $21 per hour as starting. And I just like to say that is right around $38,000 per year before taxes. That does not cover an entire cost of a master's degree. So I do think that we need to look at those. The costs have risen, so have cost of living. So I think 4 years is a long time to have a wage range not updated. And part of that is my fault. I definitely should have updated you all on that. And I think that maybe going forward on an annual basis, it is something that we should look at as a personnel subcommittee and see how things have changed from year to year.
Yeah, that actually is fine with the education, but the other thing I just wondered where are they coming from? Are they coming from in Rhode Island? They're coming from Massachusetts? They're coming from New York, where there's higher salaries. So that was the thing I was also, because, you know, if you're coming from New York, you probably have a higher salary and you're shocked because it's kind of like, so I didn't know how much of it was that as well.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think too that I try and convey the point to all of the applicants that it is a small town. It is more of a rural setting. You know, we are next to a major city, but at the same time, Tiverton is very different from Fall River, from Westport, from New Bedford, even from the towns on the island. So I think that it is definitely something to consider. Absolutely, all of the points that you just made.
Does this position also requires a master's, or that it requires it as a start? You have to
Yes.
have a master's. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Sandy.
Are there, the OLIS, when they publish the rates, do they have different rates for different classifications of libraries? In other words, does size enter into it, or is it rural versus urban type of thing, or is it just one classification rate?
So for the data that we get from OLIS, we get essentially a salaries document, and it is available actually on the state website, where it lists every library, every position that there is, and the rate of pay that library has deemed, is for that position. So it really depends on the library, the community, the setting, city, rural, suburban. There are a lot of different factors. So it's not that OLIS sets the rate themselves. It is that the libraries have those rates, and usually will base them on what others are doing in the area too. So for us, some of our comparable libraries that I look at are Portsmouth, Middletown, Narragansett. I also look at North Smithfield, and also There is one other that we've looked at in the past, and it is escaping me right now. But essentially, those are communities similar to ours that are rural, but are also close in proximity. And that's usually what I'll do is I'll present to the personnel subcommittee what each of those libraries is paying somebody for their comparable position to what we have here. So in this case, it would be the Young Adult Services Librarian. And then I do a median, I do an average, I do an average with Tiverton and without Tiverton. So it really gets down into where we should be compared to other libraries.
Just a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Is there a difference in salary ranges between municipal libraries and nonprofit libraries?
So not that I have seen. And there are a few nonprofit libraries in Rhode Island, not all are municipal here, but it is more dependent on where they are, the type of community they are, and what their similar libraries pay, is what I've seen.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, and experience too, right?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, and so that was my question. When OLIS reports, or when the libraries report to OLIS, and you can see how much per hour Portsmouth or Middletown is paying their YA librarian, but you don't know whether that person has been there 20 years and is at the top of the pay scale, or whether that person just got their library degree and is at the bottom. And
Yes.
so I'm just wondering, is the problem, are we okay with the top of our pay range? It's just that our bottom is too low.
And that's exactly what I hope to find in the data that I pull for all of this. So I'll have a pretty comprehensive report on not just the YA position, but also we have the same librarian rate for all of our degreed librarians. So that's something that will apply to them. And I'll separate those out as well. I'll do it for each position. The only other thing that OLIS will show us on that data is if they have a degree or not. But you are absolutely correct. They do not show the amount of time that somebody has been in that position. So that's where some of my research skills come in handy as I go through the job postings, usually over the past 1 to 2 years, to see if any of those positions are had been posted, and we can get a better idea of how long that person has been in that position. Also, I have a relative idea of movement and things like that in the area. Like I know Portsmouth is hiring a children's librarian right now. So that all things sort of in the brain bank of information there. So I'll make sure that if there's been any movement, I include that in the data as well.
And when we post, we didn't post with a salary range?
I did actually. So I posted that range and I said, I specifically said that starting was $21 per hour. So it is a little disheartening to me that we would get to that point.
Right, that it
in the
was
offering.
not really, shouldn't have been a big shock if
Yes.
they applied for the job knowing what the starting salary was.
Correct, absolutely.
Unless they had experience and thought that was for the starters, not for me. But I guess I wanted to know, are these two people, I think it's okay to say, would they be competitive for the next, would you contact them if you thought that they would be okay if the range went up?
I would reach out. I would reach out and see. I actually haven't really thought that through, to be honest.
Well, that's fine, because that kind of suggests to me that something else.
Well, and also too, I think that when we put it back out, we have the potential to reach other candidates who may not have had been able to put in during the first go around, and have a completely different pool. So
New graduates, for example.
exactly. Yes. Yep.
Well, we always used to have this trouble with firemen and policemen. And, I wonder, sometimes it's like, okay, if you're going to be in just kind of like what we were talking about, if you're being in a rural area, rural setting, you're not going to get the same salary as if you were in an urban setting or a wealthy community. And it's like, that's part of it. This is part of the charm. You just got to turn that lemon into a lemonade.
Exactly.
I
And
couldn't resist saying that.
also, one of my hopes is that for the interviews, whenever I have somebody here, especially for a full-time position, I always take them on a tour of our building. And I think that not being able to do that this time is something that I don't want to say it hurt us in the process, but it definitely, I think this building speaks for itself, and the space that we have, particularly for the teen library, is fantastic. And there's a lot of vision that can come with seeing that room for the types of programs and services that we can offer. So perhaps once we put it back out in July or August, then we'll be able to really showcase the full position, I guess you could say, because I can do Zoom tour, but it really doesn't do it justice.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
And I did speak with the current young adult services librarian. Her end date will be the last day of August, as long as we can have somebody come in. I'm guessing it will probably be after Labor Day weekend, that first Tuesday of September, that we'll have somebody come in.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Nope, let's move on to new business, the new collection policy.
Okay, I'm very excited about this. And I'm sorry that I have all the talking for tonight, but I'm actually very excited that we have a new collection development policy for you all. So as you saw from my notes, this policy is from 1997. And I like to think that policies age well. And this one certainly did, but it was definitely time for an update. Now you'll see a trend of library policies going towards being a little more broad, so that our professionals who are in the positions, like our reference librarian who buys for the adult collection, and our head of children's services who buys for the children's library, and the young adult librarian who of course purchases for the teen library, so that they can really narrow down what our patrons want from our collection, and be able to do their jobs really, really well in that area. So what I did is, typically I'll take the old policy, I'll mark it up, I'll put track changes in, but this policy was at a point where we needed something completely new. And so our very fantastic reference librarian, Elizabeth Aguiar, actually spearheaded this revision. And I also had some input from our head of children's services, Meg Paquette, and our young adult services librarian, Rebecca Ott. So they were able to give me some input specifically as it relates to their departments. And so the result of that is the policy that you see in front of you. The new policy. And I also included the backup documents that we use in the appendices as well. This is a pretty standard policy. I could take this policy and apply it to any public library, with the exception of like special collections, because oftentimes things like special collections are included in a collection development policy because they may have special rules and regulations about handling things like that. But this is certainly the type of policy that I hope would last another 24 years. Probably not, but I am very proud of this, and I think that it will do Tiverton Public Library very well to have this updated and really have everything in here. So if you'd like me to go over the different sections and highlight some of these, I certainly can. And pretty much what this policy is sort of, it's a behind the scenes document in a way. But if we do have any questions about materials, how we purchase, what we purchase, then this comes in very handy to give to patrons and have them read it through. One of the benefits of this policy is that the old one had a lot of very specific language that librarians would understand, but I think that if we want something to be patron friendly and really applicable to somebody just coming in and saying, hey, I just want to read this policy, then they're going to be able to do that. And there's not going to be a lot of that library ease, as we call it, in a policy.
Yeah, I appreciated how much more flexible the updated policy is. I was frankly rather astounded to see the specificity of percentages of the collection that would either be in a certain format or would that be in a certain genre.
Mhm.
And for it needs to be a living, breathing document. So something like the collection will meet the changing, interest and needs of the community is better than saying teen fiction will be purchased in paperback.
Yes.
Because the format's even changed. Think about it over the last 30 years. So I found it to be a great improvement.
Great. And I also think on that as well, ebooks were not a thing in 1997.
Right.
And also there was in the older policy, there was an internet policy in there. That is now a separate policy that I have found on our website. So I'll probably come to you all with updates on that. But the things that we took out and are taking out from the old policy, it's something that is either duplicated in another policy or redundant or just not needed right now.
Any comments, questions, or shall we move to accept the updated collections policy?
I'm happy to make the motion to approve the updated collections policy.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Very well. Carol, are you in approval?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And I, Kathy, am also in approval. Motion passes. All right, let's move on to the director's virtual conference registration and attendance.
Okay, thank you. So this is the in-person ALA annual conference in Chicago was canceled. So they're doing another virtual conference event very similar to the one that they did last summer and also the one that I attended in February as a virtual conference as well. So this is going to be June 23rd through 29th, and it is all via Zoom and sort of webinar format. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to Chicago. The registration cost is $179 for this. And so I would like permission to attend, but also have the library cover that cost. There is still a balance of $485 in the staff development and travel budget line. So that line would be able to cover this cost.
Any comments, questions?
I'm sure you're looking forward to the day where everything is not via Zoom.
I love Chicago too.
No restaurants when it's a virtual one, but just the sitting and the lack of interactions with your fellow professionals. That's always so helpful at conferences.
Yes, I agree.
But for the time being, it's as good as it gets. I'm happy to make the motion to approve the $179 fee for the virtual ALA conference so that Catherine can attend.
I will second that. All in favor, Carol Herman,
Yes.
Sandy Mantel,
Yes.
Kim Sutherland,
Yes.
Chris Ryan,
Yes.
Kathy Clarendon, yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh.
All
right, that concludes our agenda. Thank you, everyone.
Could I just give some information? I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
I was at the foundation meeting earlier. No, it was last week. Yes, last Thursday. And the foundation is actually doing a really, really thorough, an amazing job with trying to get ducks in a row and figure out a plan for how to grow the endowment. And so something that came up was talking about how libraries tell stories about people in the community, in their lives. And I guess they had talked to a wealth management professional about making connections with potential donors. And so they started talking about, well, how are we going to, how do we connect our potential donors with the Tiverton Public Library? So one of the suggestions was to maybe have a brainstorming session. And so they were wondering if maybe there was a representative or two from the trustees who would like to attend to talk about the endowment and what we would like the endowment to be for, and how we're going to tell those stories about how the library enhances the lives of our citizens. So I'll just leave it out there. And if you're interested, then just let me know and I will pass your name along.
Oh, question.
You are still our liaison, are you not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is this the one?
I am, and I plan to be there. But we were talking about, I said, I don't know if we can have everybody because I think that would be open meeting.
Violation.
But maybe if one or two others wanted to come and join and put 2 cents in, that would be nice.
Okay.
But is this in lieu of Stu coming and talking to us about
No.
this? Okay.
No.
Because he's going to do that first, right?
He is going to do it. I'm not sure if it's first or after or what. I think they were looking to do something like this in June, maybe to have it's just a listening session and just a kind of sort of a brainstorming to see how they can kind of narrow their focus on how they're going to approach the endowment and approach potential donors.
Kim, I would be happy to take part.
Great.
Could I ask a question? Is the endowment, is that going to be a separate specific fund? Or is it going to be rolled into the total endowment? In other words, there are libraries that have funds, but they have separate funds within a foundation, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So is this going to be a specific fund within the foundation? Because I don't know, that's the one thing I don't understand. I don't understand how the foundation works currently, so I don't know how this rolls into it.
I think what's happening is that the foundation is looking to grow an endowment for the library. But they hold those funds. The Tiverton Public Library does not hold those funds.
I understand that, but there's only one endowment general fund per se.
I believe so. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
It's with the Rhode Island Foundation. That's who holds it.
Okay.
I'll definitely have Stu come to the next regular meeting if that's okay with you all, and I'll make sure he can be available.
Okay.
Great.
Any other comments, questions? Then I suggest we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Carol, Sandy, Kim, Chris, and Kathy all approve. Thank you all so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Catherine.
everyone. Thank
Nice to
you.
see you.
Good night.
Bye now.
Right.
Bye.